The year was 1989. A man named Donald Kendall finalizes a deal with the Soviet Union. 30 years earlier, Kendall had arranged this deal with Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev, and after 3 decades it would be finalized. Pepsi would exclusively sell their soda to the Soviet Union in exchange for a naval fleet worth $3 billion. This is the story of how Pepsi, a soda company, became the 6th largest navy in the world. Pepsi was founded in 1893 with the name Brad's Drink and would go on to become one of the greatest soda companies of all time. Pepsi is iconic for its rivalry with Coca-Cola. The two companies' feud would become so heated that it would be nicknamed the Cola Wars. Despite this, historically, Coca-Cola would always be one step ahead. Pepsi would be the little brother trying to catch up with Coke's success.
I'll have a Coke.
Is Pepsi okay?
Is Pepsi a grrr? Did you just ask if Pepsi a grrr?
Excuse me?
Of course Pepsi is a grrr.
Just saying okay?
Why aren't you understanding? A grrr?
What kind of word is that?
Pepsi wasn't always able to contend with Coca-Cola though. Due to World War I, Pepsi went through a financial crisis. They went bankrupt not once, but twice.
What does the B in vitamin B stand for? Broke.
Coca-Cola was actually offered to buy the Pepsi company for an insanely cheap price of $35,000, but made the mistake of declining the offer. Pepsi would start selling bottles at double the value of other soda companies, which brought them back from bankruptcy. Ever since, Pepsi and Coke have always had their horns locked in a never-ending war. Pepsi, so determined to surpass Coca-Cola, looked towards the Soviet Union. They became the exclusive cola company for the Soviet Union, which was great for Pepsi, but there was one problem. The Soviet Union used rubles, not dollars, for their currency, and because of the Cold War between the Soviets and the Americans, rubles couldn't be converted into dollars. In other words, Pepsi couldn't use Soviet money. For a long time, the Soviets gave vodka in exchange for Pepsi. This went well for a while, but eventually they needed another solution. By 1989, things changed. The US imposed sanctions on Soviet products, including vodka, after the USSR invaded Afghanistan. Pepsi could no longer sell the vodka they received from the Soviet Union for money in the United States. At the same time, Pepsi's contract with the USSR was about to expire and it needed to renegotiate its terms. This is where Donald Kendall comes in. He had arranged a deal with Nikita Khrushchev, the Soviet leader at the time, for an alternative. This alternative was a naval fleet. The Soviets could not pay the money directly, so they chose to pay their sum in warships. 3 decades after arranging the deal, Pepsi got their massive fleet of warships from the Soviet Union. This $3 billion fleet consisted of 1 frigate, 1 cruiser, 1 destroyer, and not 1, not 2, but 17 submarines. At that time, this would put Pepsi as the 6th largest navy in the world. Their naval fleet was larger than that of major superpowers such as Spain, Brazil, Italy, Japan, France, and India. It was almost as big as the British Royal Navy. Donald Kendall, the guy who made the deal to acquire the fleet, sarcastically joked that he was disarming the Soviets faster than the United States was. So, what did Pepsi do with their almighty naval fleet? Well, that's the catch. The fleet they received was old and not exactly operational. These ships were already decommissioned and could not actually function as a true navy. Since Pepsi was a soda company, they obviously didn't have much use for the ships. Pepsi sold their navy for scrap metal to a Swedish company. Supposedly, this was the story of how Pepsi became the 6th largest navy, but doing further research, we see that this is not at all what happened. So did Pepsi truly have the 6th largest navy? Did they really receive a naval fleet from the Soviet Union? Well, no. Pepsi acquired 20 ships from the Soviet Union. Calculating solely based on this number of ships, Pepsi actually ranked 23rd. If we go deeper and calculate by tonnage, Pepsi actually ranks even lower at 24th. With their frigate, destroyer, cruiser, and 17 submarines, they don't even break into the top 20. And this is before considering that none of their ships even worked. And behind all that is if this deal even happened. According to other sources, the Soviets were not selling decommissioned warships, but building new, non-military ones for Pepsi. The original deal might have changed in the 30-year time frame. And before Pepsi received their brand new ships from the Soviet Union, it collapsed in 1991 before they could pay Pepsi their ships. So what did Pepsi get for all those years investing in the Soviet Union? Not much. After all that work, Russia still prefers Coke.